Hey everybody, video number 2 about my first week at the ranch. So this video I'm going to share a lot about teaching at Ebenezer Academy. So in the first video, if you remember, I kind of gave an overview of the Rancho Ebenezer itself and the ministry. So for this video, I want to share with you a little bit more about Ebenezer Academy and my experience with the kids and just kind of stepping back into teaching in general. So here we go. So the week that I was there, Monday through Thursday, I spent teaching at Ebenezer Academy, and so I got to spend time with the Honduran and North American teachers during that time. So to begin, personally, I had a lot of anxiety and was kind of hesitant to step back into teaching. If you have been following my story at all, I left teaching in February 2022 because I was really burnt out from teaching during COVID, and explained that during that time I got kind of understood the explanation that I was actually working through trauma of my own from my story growing up and just some things that had happened. So honestly, it was so beautiful as I've been home and been reflecting, because I really see that God brought me to the ranch for this first week to continue healing from teaching and begin teaching again. So something I really experienced Christ's love and grace in a new way in the culture of the school and the culture of the leadership in ways that I never knew before, and honestly, that I don't think I could have experienced at any school or experience here in the States. So it was just really cool. So, some verses from the Bible that have been my prayer this last year is Ephesians 3:16 through 21, and I'll just read it to you. So it's a prayer the Apostle Paul prays for himself and for the church. And it's, I pray that out of your glorious riches you may strengthen us with power through your Spirit in our inner being, so that Christ may dwell in our hearts through faith. And I pray that we, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all of God's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that we may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Now to him who's able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus through all generations, forever and ever. Amen. So I've been praying this prayer for myself and for our church, my church, and the phrase rooted and grounded in love is what I really began to experience this first week at the ranch. As in, personally, I am so rooted and grounded in Christ's love for me that cannot be changed, that therefore then the overflow of that is loving other people and desiring to know God's love for everyone and myself in more and more ways. So I'll kind of give you a little bit of the overview of the schedule for my days. It was like Monday through Friday, kind of. But so 7 a.m. was breakfast in the Commodore with the kids. So the kids, like I said, sit with their family groups. And then at 8 a.m., the kids line up for school at Ebenezer Academy by grades. So in some of the pictures I'll post, you might see the kids lined up. And in every grade, there was 8 kids at the most, maybe. So very small class numbers there. And so here's kind of what I got to teach. So my schedule was, I had 1 to 2 hour reading pullouts with kids who were from the community who attended Ebenezer Academy to practice reading in English. So like I said, this school is English and Spanish. And the North American teacher there, who's there right now, her name is Tangi, and she has been has them reading and practicing English vocabulary by reading missionary biographies. So if you know me, earlier in videos I shared like some of my favorite missionary biographies, and I absolutely love this, that she's using these stories to teach these kids to read English, because we know how stories we read growing up and everything really shape our hearts and our minds and our imaginations. So I loved that she's using these stories to teach the kids to read English. So I had reading pullouts. And then I taught 7th grade English class. And in this class, I had 2 students I was working with uh, during their English block for about an hour and a half every day. And again, so these are ranch and community kids. So let me explain the difference a little bit. So the ranch kids are kids who don't have families who are permanently living at the ranch. The community kids are the sons and daughters of people who work at the ranch. So uh, even to find a good school in Honduras and to have a good education, but especially a good bilingual education, is such a blessing there. And so those who work at the ranch, if they have kids, their kids can attend school at Ebenezer Academy. So, and something else that is really interesting is often the kids in the community, their parents don't speak English. So the only exposure they get to English is coming to school and practicing. So that's one of the reasons they had me doing the pull-out practicing reading with the community kids, was because for that week they had a native English speaker who could work one-on-one with these kids and just get them more practice. So during that 7th grade English class, I taught about possessive pronouns in the difference between Spanish and English. So the 7th grade class, again, 2 of them, was very engaging and was quickly receptive to my teaching the class. And we always ended the class by playing hangman in Spanish and English. And then I taught 8th grade English as well, usually right after that. And I had 3 ranch kids in the 8th grade English class. And immediately when I walked into the room, I could tell that their trust would not be very easily won from these 3. And this is due to multiple things. So, being in middle school, trauma, they really don't have any reason to respect me yet because I had not earned their respect. And I was a new person to their school for the week. So as we got going, I began to own the room and we established boundaries and a bit of rapport. And I sought to keep the tone light and firm, moving through the lessons. One thing I have learned about working with kids from who have trauma or emotional distress in their story is that giving them respect immediately with no judgment and little to no reaction to offhanded comments or inappropriate comments, if I'm reacting to them that way, that really provides space and grace for connection to happen. So I walked away from my time with this class the first day a little bit shaken because I could tell it was going to be challenging, but a good situation for me to be in during the week. So that was the 8th grade English class, and as the week went on, we did establish a rapport. Again, so it's not a very quick, deep, emotional connection with the kids, but I saw their demeanor change toward me as the week went on, as in I believe they came to respect me as I was trying to respect them and engage them and, not just come in like I know what I'm doing, because I don't. So that was cool because I got to acknowledge that in front of them and just kind of ask for their help in that way. The last group of classes that I taught was PE class. So I had a range of different sections from 1st grade to 8th grade, and I also had the privilege of teaching these classes during the week. So, prompted by a teacher friend of mine, I turned to Pinterest for lesson plan ideas and activities that could be done with limited equipment. So the school does have a room full of donated items like frisbees, jump ropes, soccer balls, hula hoops, cones, and other miscellaneous items that can be used for outdoor activities. So we did different scaffolded activities with frisbees, and they got more and more complicated. And then we had hula hoops as well, and we always ended with soccer, because if you know anything about Honduras or Spanish-speaking countries in Latin America, soccer's the thing. Football is the thing. So they were always asking me to play, and it was just a great go-to to finish and give them 10 to 15 minutes of automatic time that they could play on their court. So I was so encouraged by how the kids overall responded to me respectfully and listened well to the directions during the PE classes. So this time of teaching really reminded me of my 4 summers at Miracle Bible Camp in northern Minnesota, where I got to work, and it was a joy to know that I've done this sort of thing before. So even halfway through the week, I the thought of being a teacher again still was intimidating, but the more time I spent at the ranch, the more time it felt like camp, actually. Like the 1 week experience, building connections quickly with kids who may or may not want to connect with me. And so it was a real joy and a helpful switch mentally throughout the week, halfway through, to be like, oh, I just got to be camp counselor Kayla, like to pull that hat on, and so I'm really grateful for that. So Friday was completely different from Monday through Thursday. So Friday the school celebrated Arbor Day. So they were going to end school before the actual Arbor Day happened. Uh, but so this meant that we had no classes, but all the kids and teachers spent the morning planting trees on the ranch property. So, what this meant was, as a group, we gathered little saplings that they had bought to go be planted, and we were climbing through the mountain foliage, carrying watering cans, shovels, and the groundskeepers, Hondurans who work on the ranch grounds, were leading us through, showing us where to plant the trees. So this experience was really special because we got to explore being outside. The kids got to be helpful and learn more about how trees grow, and it was a really cool experience to kind of hang out with everyone in a different way. So again, my Spanish really got to be used this week outside of teaching. I always taught in English, but this day I was really tired also by this point, so I was trying to engage with the kids or teachers in conversation, but it was definitely very challenging. So I wanted to explain a little bit more about the teachers at the ranch and how it works. So the Honduran teachers that I got to know are wonderful, dedicated, and gifted Hondurans who I said bus every day about an hour to come to the ranch to teach. I really saw their patience and their heart for the students, and it really speaks to me of Christ. So all the teachers know Christ and are Christians and believe in Him, and most were Spanish speaking only. A couple of them knew English, and so I'm just really, really encouraged by their commitment to working with kids like this because it's challenging. It's exhausting. I saw them at the end of the school year, just like any teacher anywhere at the end of the school year is really tired, but they still were giving their everything, and so I really love and respect that about them. Uh, so the one North American teacher who's there, her name was Tangi, and she's been a teacher at the ranch for 3 years, and she's finishing this school year and is going to move home to be with her family more. And she taught the English classes and was just really a joy to talk to. So every morning I got to go in early and kind of spend a lot of time with her, asking her about her experience at the ranch, her living situation, lifestyle in Honduras as a North American living away from the city. She shared a lot about me, about the school's history, philosophy, procedures, and how they specifically support students with trauma in their story. So again, I really am so grateful for that time that I got to kind of pick her brain about what is it like to actually live here and be here. Uh, and then the other person who I really got to know, and her name was Miss Brenda. She's the principal. She's been the principal for about 5 years. And so again, so grateful for my Spanish because I really got to have deeper conversations with her slowly as my Spanish would allow and my comprehension, and her servant's heart, her patience, her firm expectations for all students were really clearly communicated, and it really communicated Christ's love and steadfastness to these students. So they love her. It was very clear that very evident that they trust her as a constant and safe guiding mentor in their lives. They would come up and give her a hug, and just her heart to be with these kids and love them and give them the best opportunity that they can is so admirable. And so in Spanish, I got to hear more of her heart, her story, and openly share my story with teaching too. And again, I was met with compassion and grace, especially from her, about my wounds from teaching, honestly, and her compassion, her grace on me as I taught throughout the week was honestly a really healing balm for my heart in teaching. And when I needed it, I look at it as one of the final steps to healing some of those experiences that I have had in the last 5 years. And so she really loved me well in this tender area where I have been so wounded from teaching during the pandemic and just personal things like that in general as well. So I had asked you guys to give me some questions to answer as well from, over email. And so I'll read through a couple questions, and in my next video also I'll share a little bit more again about how things work. So one of the questions was, I would like to know how God was working through you during this trip. And so one of the ways I really saw God working through me was simply showing up and asking really good questions and listening well to the people who were at the ranch, to the people who, the missionaries who are there, anyone who is working there. I really saw God showing Christ's love through me by showing up and listening and seeing these people. And I would say that was one of the ways I saw him work the most. And also one of the ways, the things he did in me was really growing and healing my heart in some of those areas of teaching, like I shared. Another question is, what were some of the new things you learned as you were in this culture and away from everything you knew and were familiar with? That's a very good question. And one of the major things I learned as I've been coming back is the difference between warm climate culture and cold climate culture. So here in Minnesota, mostly Minnesota, I'm not sure about other states, but cold climate culture is more focused on productivity, individualism, things like that. And warm climate culture is welcoming, open, community, relationship based. Time, the concept of time is completely different in both of these cultures. So I saw that especially in, I see that I fit really well in a warm climate culture, I think, personality wise, because one of the big passions God's given me is relationships with people and seeing people, knowing people, loving those around me through relationships. So to be a part of a culture where that was the emphasis and that was the focus, it was hard coming back. Even as simple as walking down the street, like at a park or something here, like in the culture in Honduras, for example, you at least would get a smile and like a respectful nod there, like you'd get acknowledged. Whereas for sure here in Minnesota, no one wants to quite make eye contact. It's very focused on yourself and not bothering people. So that was an adjustment coming back. And so those were some of the cultural things I felt like I experienced. And someone had a question about the school and the level of technology that we take for granted in the school. Like here we have tablets and iPads and things like that for remote learning. They have nothing like that at Ebenezer Academy. So it's all paper pencil. They did have projectors and like mini TVs so that you could play a video or something. And they had kind of like a smart document camera where if you put a piece of paper under the camera, you can project onto like the screen up there. So other than that, though, it's fundraised or donated to the school. So the need is very, very great there. So a couple of the other questions I'll save for my next video. But again, thank you so much for your prayers and support. I was sharing with a friend this week how I really see that I personally made it through these 2 weeks by your love and prayers. Because I knew and I felt them, and I knew that I was being supported from home, and so that just made the biggest difference. And also another reason I'm experiencing Christ's love in a new way for me is because of your love for me. So thank you again so much. All right, week number 2 will be coming in video form, probably again in 2 different videos, coming shortly. So have a great week, guys.